Good morning. Welcome to episode 76 of Duval Rundown. My name is Gus Logue. Today I'm joined, as I am each Friday, by Hacker of Hacker After Dark, which you can listen to from 8 to 10 p.m. each weekday on 1010XL and 92.5 FM radio. Today, Hacker and I are going to go over some observations that we had from Jaguars general manager James Gladstone's first few media appearances, both in Jacksonville at his introductory press conference, but then throughout the week at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. So, Hacker, welcome back. How's your week treating you so far?
Gus, it's good, man. Obviously, a lot going on with the Combine. We are 10 days away from free agency. There's certainly a lot to talk about when it comes to that. And James Gladstone's officially been the Jaguar GM for 1 week. So we got a lot to get into.
Definitely. Yeah, I know that everyone kind of like starts looking ahead to the draft, especially around this time because it is NFL Combine week. But free agency is really important and more important to address first because obviously, as the saying goes, you address needs in free agency and then so you can draft for wants in April. And so we're going to go over a few comments that Gladstone had on some guys on the current roster and decisions that the team is going to have to make in the next couple of weeks, if not in the next coming week. So starting out with Christian Kirk, there was a reporter that asked James Gladstone when he was at the podium at the NFL Combine about Christian Kirk and said that there was rumors that he was on the trade block last season and would that potentially come back onto the table. And Gladstone said, "No, I wouldn't say that. We're just starting the conversations about our own current roster across both scouting and coaching staff, as well as working in pro-free agent-related dialogue." So at this point in time, I can say we're happy to have Christian. And that was pretty much it. I think Liam Cohen also was asked about Christian Kirk, and he just said, all I can say right now is we have a lot of respect for Christian. And so were you able to kind of like learn anything, Hacker? Did that tell you anything, that quote about Christian Kirk, or do you think it's kind of a wait to see? And what do you just ultimately expect to happen with Christian Kirk? Do you think he will be in a Jaguars uniform in 2025?
I've learned that a large majority of the fan base thinks Christian Kirk probably won't be here in 2025. Some don't even want him here in 2025 for the salary cap savings. Here, I made this point earlier in the week, and I'm curious your thoughts. If you can upgrade, right, then I think it's warranted to get rid of Christian Kirk. It's a business. Obviously, I like Christian. I think he's done some good things, but he's gotten injured back-to-back years. But it comes down, can you upgrade at that spot? Realistically, and that's a key word here, realistic guys that you can get, because I don't think you're going to get T. Higgins. All right. Now, if you can get T. Higgins, then yeah, Christian Kirk is gone. But I don't think that's realistic. You look at the free agents outside of Chris Godwin, and I would have a conversation with you about Marquise Hollywood-Brown if he's healthy. But outside of those two, Gus, I don't think there's a free agent you can bring in that's better than Kirk. I mean, Stephon Diggs is 31, coming off an ACL. You got Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson. I mean, are these guys better than Kirk? No. Godwin? Yeah, okay. But he's got injury concerns of his own. I think he's actually older than Christian, and he's going to cost. Marquise Hollywood-Brown, again, I'm curious your thoughts on him. That would be the one that would be of interest to me. Are you going to trade for Cooper Kupp? He's had injury problems. You know, I mean, there's realistically, I don't know how many guys you can bring in that are better than Kirk. So when people say get rid of him for the $15 million cap savings, well, who are you replacing him with? That you need to really think about that before you make that statement.
Well, I think that Parker Washington could be a decent replacement, but that would be not an upgrade, and that would be more so just looking at it from an investment standpoint, since Parker's would be playing on kind of pennies on the dollar compared to Christian Kirk. But yeah, in terms of an upgrade, like I don't really think Hollywood-Brown would be an upgrade. He'd be nice because he gives you like the vertical speed element, but I don't think he's necessarily a better football player than Christian Kirk. I also would assume that he and the Chiefs are going to try to get another short-term deal done to run it back, since Marquise wasn't really that healthy last year. He'll probably want to try again with the Chiefs, especially with Kelsey and Trey Smith, and seems like a decent amount of Chiefs running it back for next year. And then I agree with you. I think that Chris Godwin would be an upgrade, but I expect him to re-sign with the Bucs and then Cooper Kupp would probably be the only other like remaining option. But he's got like contract concerns himself, and then also age and durability concerns. And so I totally hear your point where like the Jags shouldn't just be cutting Christian Kirk just to save $6 million. Say that they save $6 million and it's wave a banner in the stadium that says we cut Christian Kirk, we saved $6 million. It's like it would be nice to have like a plan for what you're actually going to do with that. Not necessarily that $6 million, but what the plan you're going to have with those extra resources in cap space. But if you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so I didn't necessarily learn anything about Christian Kirk, I don't think, from James Gladstone or Liam Cohen's comments this week. But I guess that because I didn't learn anything, I'm continuing with my current assumption that he will be on the team in 2025. And so is that your final prediction too?
And the one thing to think about too, Gus, is Brian Thomas Jr. was good all of last year. He was really good the last 7 or 8 games, as we talked about last week, when the Jaguars decided in their ultimate wisdom with Press Taylor and Doug Peterson to finally start throwing him the football. But we didn't see the really good Brian Thomas Jr. with Christian Kirk out there. Kirk was already gone at that point. So the intriguing part to me would be, what can this offense look like with the Brian Thomas Jr. that we saw at the end of the year, with a healthy Christian Kirk, potentially a healthy Evan Engram, right? Gabe Davis, you're going to get what you're going to get out of him. He's going to be back because of his contract. But that does intrigue me to kind of run it back from that standpoint. I understand people that don't want to do that, and I hear you. But again, if you tell me they can get better than Christian Kirk, I'm all for that conversation. Don't cut him just for the sake of cutting him, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Our buddy Delphonic is on YouTube saying that cutting Christian Kirk with a post-June 1 cut would save $16.2 million. But then you're just pushing dead money to the future, and I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's like whether it's $6 million or $16 million, whether the dead cap is just going to be in 2025 or spread out across 2 years, like have more of a reasoning for letting go of a good football player other than like it'll save X amount of money. So that'll bring us to, I think, the next player I wanted to talk about, which was Evan Engram. I didn't necessarily listen to every Liam Cohen presser from this week, but I did listen to every James Gladstone presser. Didn't hear Engram mentioned once. Gladstone did get asked about Brenton Strange specifically, so he had an answer, which was, yeah, really excited about his ascension in year 2, and I think he'll have a part in the offense moving forward in a way that we haven't seen yet. To me, at first I was like, oh, wow, that means like Evan Engram is gone and Brenton Strange is like going to be the starter now. But then I realized that, again, Gladstone was specifically being asked about Brenton Strange. And so it's not like he just started talking about Brenton Strange without being prompted to. And so I think Brenton Strange now, I'm like cooled my jets a lot more. And it's like, oh, he can be like a part of the offense in a new way going forward, just by being like a little bit more involved in the screen game. Both Gladstone and Cohen have talked about the multiplicity and variety of like the screen game and how well Cohen utilizes that in his offensive scheme. And so I think just screen game, like small things to the flat, getting him involved in like RPO packages, stuff like that would make sense for Strange. But you can do that with or without Evan Engram on the roster. So, Hacker, what's your read on Evan Engram and whether or not he will be a Jaguar in 2025? Because he is like Christian Kirk, where they're both under contract through 2025, but there's a lot of conversations going around about whether or not they will be cut for cap salary reasons.
This probably isn't fair or not, but you know, you read the tea leaves on a couple of things. The Liam Cohen introductory press conference. You know, Brian Thomas Jr. was there, Christian Kirk was there, Trevor Lawrence was there, right? There were a lot of guys that were there. Gabe Davis was there. Evan Engram was not there. And again, I don't know if that means anything. He was out of town on vacation. There's a lot of guys that weren't there. But when your 3 starting wide receivers and your quarterback were there at the Liam Cohen introductory presser, because BTJ, Kirk, Davis, and Lawrence were all there, and Evan wasn't, I took notice of that a little bit. And then I think it came out that like 2 or 3 weeks had gone by and Liam and Evan hadn't talked. I know they since have, but it took a little while for them to talk. Again, you just kind of connect the dots on things. Look, Evan Engram is among the top 10, maybe top 5 players on this Jaguar football team. How would he fit in Liam Cohen's offense? Like you mentioned, I think it's something that has to be considered. I believe Engram is only a $6 million cap savings in its entirety. So you got to take that into the equation. He's clearly the best tight end. You already have a couple of free agents in Luke Farrell and Josiah DeGuara. So if you cut Engram, you're going to basically have to revamp the tight end room. I think I feel more comfortable about Engram being back, or at least I did up until the last couple of days. And then you hear some things, and you hear a lot of things this time of year, right? There's a lot of rumblings.
Yeah.
But I'm more 50-50 on that one now, if Ingram's going to come back or not. Again, you better have a darn good plan at tight end if you're only going to save $6 million in cutting Evan Engram, because Evan Engram is a top 10 tight end in this league. Would he be a top 10 tight end in Liam Cohen's offense? Well, maybe that's a different question. But if it were me, I would bring Evan Engram back. And it's maybe because I'm biased because I like the guy.
Right.
But you better, if you're going to cut Engram, you better have a darn good plan and the future of that tight end position.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, where I think that I was kind of like leaning towards just assuming that he was going to still be on the roster in 2025, because I like him. He's a great locker room guy, definitely a great pass catcher at tight end. But I do think you also raised a really good point about like just the fit in Cohen's offense, because all those things that I just mentioned with Brenton Strange is kind of like the extent of what the Rams and Liam Cohen and Kevin O'Connell like doing with their tight ends. Like they do invest in their tight ends. Tampa Bay had K. Dotton, although that was a draft pick before Liam Cohen got there. But Kevin O'Connell's Vikings went out and traded for T.J. Hawkinson. Sean McVay's Rams paid pretty good money to Colby Parkinson just last offseason. But these guys can all play with a hand in their dirt. They can play like the classic wide tight end that's in line, pretty much basically a 6 offensive lineman. And that's really not Engram's game. He's kind of like a pseudo slot receiver. And so if he did end up staying on the roster, I would be super excited to see like the ways that Liam Cohen deployed him and got him open for Trevor Lawrence to throw to. But I just think that like Brenton Strange is probably closer to like the version of a tight end that both Cohen and Gladstone are going to be looking for. And so while it's like it is the same deal of like, oh, you don't just cut Evan Engram just because of the savings amount. But I think in this case, like you potentially cut Evan Engram because he's just not really the right fit schematically for what you want to do. But that said, like he definitely has the intangibles that James Gladstone is looking for and has been harping on all week. And so maybe that'll kind of push him over the edge to keep Evan Engram on board. But other than that, Hacker, what other takeaways do you have about Gladstone or Liam Cohen's comments about what they might potentially do with the roster, especially in free agency before we get to the draft?
Well, what's interesting is, I mean, free agency's in 10 days. There's 2 starters for the Jaguars that are going to hit free agency, and Brandon Sheriff and Andre Cisco. And I'm not sure if either guy was even asked about those 2. I just think the common assumption is that both are Sheriff is definitely gone. I mean, you again, read the tea leaves on that one. They keep talking about the interior of the offensive line. Well, you have a free agent right guard that's 33. Sheriff is not coming back. Cisco to me is the more interesting one because at this point last year, I was guilty of this. I knew, or I guess when they re-signed Campbell, and obviously when Trevor got his deal, I'm thinking, all right, well, you can franchise Cisco now next year because we all knew Cisco was going to have a great 2024. And he had a horrific 2024. Now, was that Andre Cisco? Was that Ryan Nielsen putting him in bad situations? What was that? I forget who I had on Hacker After Dark, but it was a great analogy. One of the draft analysts and NFL guys that were talking about Cisco, and he said, can you rely on Andre Cisco? The guy plays the safety position, which literally means he's the safety. He's the last line of defense, and based on last year, you probably cannot rely on him. See Tyreek Hill, 80 yards in week 1. That was Andre Cisco's fault by all indications. So, again, was it a bad year? Was he in a bad scheme? Could Campanile's scheme fit him better? It's a great safety market in free agency, man. It's a great safety market with Javon Holland and Morig and all these guys. So If I was a betting man right now, Gus, I would say probably Sheriff is gone, and I would probably say Andre Cisco is gone.
Yeah, man, I agree with Dell in the comments before last season. Definitely thought that Andre Cisco was ascending. I do think that he's certainly not blameless, but I would say it's probably more related to the scheme and the positions that he was put in as much as anything else. Like, I wonder if there's any lingering injuries that also had an effect. But Cisco, in years past, especially when he was like showing flashes in 2023, was just so good at like breaking on the ball and like displaying his football instincts. And I felt like he wasn't really displaying that last year because like and maybe he was just like thinking a little bit too much about like where he was supposed to be. So then he was flat footed a little bit. It seemed like he wasn't really in the right fit to be able to just like play freely and play fast. And so hoping for that for him for wherever he ends up landing. But yeah, safety and really just secondary in general is going to be a big spot of emphasis for the Jaguars, but I don't think there's going to be a greater spot of emphasis than offensive line. As you mentioned, Gladstone kind of name dropped interior offensive line multiple times. And a couple of times was in talking about Trevor Lawrence, he was saying that Trevor we haven't seen the best from Trevor. And part of that is because of Cohen's scheme is going to raise him up. And part of that is because like the personnel that they start inviting into the building will raise him up. And specifically on the interior offensive line, because Gladstone was talking about how as a quarterback, it's important to quote unquote set the dish with the interior up front because it allows quarterbacks to step into their throws and thus gain confidence and be able to deliver balls accurately. And so, yeah, I think Sheriff is pretty much as good as gone. I think most of us could have expected that as soon as the season ended. But I'm also interested in seeing like how they go about addressing right guard because at first I know that the majority of Jags fans probably wanted Trey Smith, the right guard from the Chiefs, but now that he's getting franchise tagged, the majority of Jags fans would probably want just like the next best right guard on the market, and that's totally understandable. But like Gladstone has also been talking a lot this week about how the Jags have 24 draft picks over the next 2 years, which is more than any other NFL team. But they want to add to that. They want more draft capital. As Gladstone said, like more at bats will never be a bad thing. And so to me, I'll be interested to see if they make any like heavy swings, specifically at guard in free agency, because I think what could end up happening is they spend like 3 different draft picks on that position in April.
Well, I'll tell you this about Trey Smith, and I could be wrong. I'm happy Kansas City franchised him, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I've done that song and dance with the Jaguar organization spending huge money on interior linemen. Zane Beatles,
Yeah.
Andrew Norwell, and Brandon Sheriff. I'm done with spending huge dollars on those guys. Zane Beatles was awful. Andrew Norwell was the whirly bird, all right. And Sheriff was the best of the 3, but he was average at best. So Kansas City can take their 21 million and pay Trey Smith. Give me Will Fries from Indy. Give me, somebody else. Draft a guy in the second round. Yeah, I'm happy Trey Smith is not coming to Jacksonville. Nothing against him. I have damaged memories from horrific offensive guard signings here in the past.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And I think that even if Trey Smith like ended up signing like a record-setting contract, and if he made 3 Pro Bowls in a row, I feel like it would be possible that he like still wouldn't be quite living up to his contract. But anyway, that's not really anything we have to worry about. Zach Martin, I think, would have been really interesting, but the Cowboys' legendary right guard ended up retiring. And so now there's definitely some starting caliber options available for right guards in free agency. But they might not necessarily get one. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But Hacker, is there anything else? I feel like we pretty much hit it all. But is there anything else that you're looking forward to seeing how the team addresses a certain position in free agency before we get to the draft?
No, I think by the next time you and I talk, we'll probably have clarity on some of this. I mean, Evan Engram and Christian Kirk, with free agency opening up Monday, March 10th for negotiations, we're going to be talking on March 7th, next Friday. So might have clarity there. And then do they re-sign any of their own? You got another 10 or so unrestricted free agents, whether it's Mac Jones, Caleb Johnson, Luke Farrell. Dearness Johnson, Jeremiah Ledbetter. I would think most of those guys are probably gone, but it will be interesting to see if any of them get new deals here before free agency officially opens a week from Monday.
Yeah. Look out for the Luke Farrell re-signing, everyone. That'll be coming up.
I think Farrell and Caleb Johnson are the two guys I would actually bring back.
Yeah.
I like Luke Farrell as a third tight end.
Totally. And Caleb Johnson is also definitely a good nod. I think that those probably are the two names to look out for the most, though. I'm personally hoping that Andre Sisco ends up being interested in re-signing and staying here. I think he's got some good connections with some players in the secondary, especially Tyson Campbell. And so hopefully he'll come back, but we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. But Hacker, appreciate you as always for joining. We'll see you here next Friday.
Gus, you're the man. Have a great week.
Appreciate it. Yeah, have a good weekend to you, Hacker. Have a good weekend to everyone who watches and listens. Thank you as always, and we will see you here on Monday at 9:04 a.m. Delphonic said he'd sign Luke. All right, Luke it is. Luke Farrell, come on home or come back home. See you guys later.